Hi, my name is Jill, and I'm a K-2 veteran with the Stronghold Freedom Foundation, and I would like to share my story with you today. I enlisted into the Army National Guard and served 7 years as a military police officer. During that time, 9/11 happened, and like most other soldiers, I volunteered to do whatever I could to serve my country. I was deployed to K2 Uzbekistan from August of 2002 until March of 2003. And before I left, I was a fun-loving young 24-year-old who was fit, loved to run, and was working my dream job as a police officer. Everything changed after my deployment. One of my duties while I was there in Uzbekistan was to pull guard duty next to what they called Skittles Pond, which was a large body of liquid. It wasn't quite water because it was very foul-smelling, thick, and ugly, and we called it Skittles Pond because it had a rainbow sheen over it. After about a month of being there, they backfilled it with dirt, and we never heard anything else about it. Another one of our duties was also to pull perimeter patrol along the fence outside the dirt berm around our tent city. On this fence were many signs that warned us against toxic exposure to things like depleted uranium and ionized radiation. Ironically, the running track was also along this same fence. And being a runner, I ran on this running track almost every day. Of course, we brought our concerns up to our superiors, but we were told that the signs were old and that all the levels were safe and we had nothing to worry about. After about a month of being there, I developed a blister-type rash on my leg, went to the medical tent, and they didn't know what it was. And about a month after that is when I started urinating blood. And they tested me many times for urinary tract infections, but they kept coming back negative, and they would give me antibiotics anyways. And then I started developing other symptoms like fevers, swollen lymph nodes, GI symptoms, fatigue, and just general malaise. I really just did not feel good. So they decided that I should be flown up to Germany to be evaluated. But once I got up there in October, the doctors did a physical examination on me and just didn't find anything wrong with me and gave me the decision to either go home or finish out my deployment. So I decided to finish out my deployment until March. And when we hit stateside in March of 2003, we did what they called a fast-track demobilization, which meant we didn't get to see a doctor to go over any medical concerns that we had. We were told just to write them down on a piece of paper. What I didn't realize is that the fate of my life would rest on what I wrote, or more importantly, what I didn't write on that piece of paper that day. I tried to get some care through the military at Hanscom Air Force Base near my home, but they couldn't find anything or figure out what was wrong with me, so they documented my symptoms and referred me to my primary care. A couple of months after coming home, I was finally diagnosed with endometriosis, which is an autoimmune disorder. My symptoms persisted, and I was forced to take family medical leave from my law enforcement job and ultimately forced to resign. And I could no longer work and fulfill my duties as a police officer, my dream job. I decided to go back to school and become a nurse, and I worked as a nurse for a few years before I got pregnant with my son. After he was born was when I really became ill. After seeing many different doctors, I was finally diagnosed with postural orthostatic tachycardic syndrome, or POTS for short. This is an autonomic nervous system disorder. It's also autoimmune, and it basically means that that part of my nervous system is broken. This part of your nervous system controls everything from your heart rate, to the way you sweat, to your breathing, to the way that your eyes dilate and constrict. And it also affects your fight or flight response. So right now, my body is always in a fight or flight state. And every time I stand up, my heart rate jumps a minimum of 30 beats per minute. A doctor compares this to a regular person. It's like a regular person running a marathon every day because of the strain and the stress that it puts on my heart and my body. I was also diagnosed with a very rare, progressive, and incurable disease called stiff person syndrome. And this disease affects my central nervous system. My body is attacking a chemical in my brain that helps control how your muscles move. So when my muscles spasm, I don't have enough of this chemical to tell them to release. People with this disease can break bones, they can stop breathing, they can become paralyzed, bedridden, and it can ultimately be fatal. Right now, I am on a 6-hour infusion that I get weekly, and this is just to maintain where I am right now and not as a cure, because again, it is progressive and incurable. As you can imagine, I am in and out of the hospital quite frequently because of exacerbations. It's very painful and it's very hard to work. I have not worked as a nurse since 2013, and I also was forced to have a hysterectomy and could not have any more children, which my husband and I really wanted to have. This has been very hard on our family, and I cannot do daily activities, I cannot work, and I cannot do a lot of things, simple things such as play with my 12-year-old son. I did apply for disability through the VA, and I did have my examination a few years ago, and I brought all the paperwork I had from Germany all the way up to now. And they did award me compensation and disability for the endometriosis, but denied everything else. They said that they could not connect any of my symptoms to the toxic exposure at K2. I know that there are tens of thousands of other veterans out there like me right now who have the same situation going on. Right now, my case is in an appeal, and it's going to take years for me to have my hearing and to try to get the compensation that I deserve. That is why we need your help. I hope that you will look at the evidence before you, and I hope you will listen to our stories, and I hope that you will see the suffering and just the hardship that this toxic exposure at K2 has put on us and our families. We need your help. We need our representatives, we need our senators, and we need our Congress to do the right thing. We need you, please, not only to do the right thing for me, but do the right thing for my family and for the tens of thousands of other veterans and their families who are in the same position. Thank you very much for listening, and thank you for your time.